Hey guys, Christian here. It's Friday and you know what that means? Finally some time to lab. So let's start with the second video of my EVENG series and let's do some Juniper labs. Go to the web console of your EVE server and log in as the user you have created. I will still use the admin and the default password. As you can see, we still have no lab, so let's change that. We click the Add New Lab button, and now we're able to add a new lab. I will name mine EVENG Demo Juniper. You can also add a version number, add yourself as the author, and also add a description. In my case, I will use the description standard template. You can also insert some tasks, but we'll cover that in another video. Leave the config script timeout also to the default 300 seconds. Click Save, and now you're presented with the topology of your lab. And it's empty because we haven't added a node yet. Click on Add an Object Node to add a node. You will see a list of all the templates that are available in EVENG. If you type JUN for Juniper, you can see that no image has been uploaded yet, so you can't add a node. Let's change that. In this example, I downloaded the Juniper Virtual Route Reflector bundle. But first, we have to unpack it, because it's compressed to save some bandwidth. You can use 7-zip, it's shown in this example, or you can also use WinRAR or any other software that can uncompress the TGZ files. Uncompress it and you get a tar file. And you need to further uncompress that as well to get the files that we need for our EVENG. As you can see, a new folder has been created with the version number. We don't need the other two anymore. Open up the folder and inside you will find a metadata image and the Junos image itself. The other files can also be deleted. Take your Junos image file and rename it as virtioa.qcow2. You can just rename img to qcow2. The metadata, we need to name it virtiob.qcow2. That's needed for the image to start up. Basically, you now told it that virtioa is the first disk and virtiob is the second disk. Also, you can rename your folder to something like VRR to know that it's the virtual route reflector. In the next step, we will use FileZilla to connect to our EVENG server, because we need to upload the image. The image has to be uploaded to the folder opt unet lab addons qemu. That's where all your files will reside. Upload the complete folder containing your virtioa and virtiob. Depending on your bandwidth, this may take some time. After the upload has finished, you will find your VRR folder in your EVENG server containing vert.io A and vert.io B. Now to the next step. Connect to your EVE server via SSH and go to the folder opt unet lab addons qemu. You can use the tree command to list all your files. In my case, vert.io A and vert.io B inside of the folder VRR 19.3 R2 S1.5. Next, we need to fix the permissions because usually uploading can mess with the permissions. Just run this command as Eve suggested, and that's it. You have successfully fixed your permissions. If you go to your Eve server after uploading, you might still see that you can select the Juniper RR. But why is that? That's because we didn't use the correct naming. And I'm going to show you how to change that. Back via SSH, we need to make sure that VRR is replaced by Juniper VRR, because that's what your EVE template for the Juniper Virtual Route Reflector expects. It does not know that your image for the Virtual Route Reflector is inside the VRR. It expects it inside the Juniper VRR. Rename it, and as you can see here, it has just been renamed to the correct naming string. Fix the permissions once again to make sure that nothing messed up with the permissions, and now you're ready to add it inside of your EVE. Back in our EVE, add the node again, and this time the Juniper RR is blue. So that means we have a valid image that we can use for it. In this case 19.3 R2 S1.5. Leave everything at the default and hit save. You have successfully added a virtual route reflector to your topology. Congrats! Right-click and Start to start it up. Since we are connected to the native console, if you click it, it will ask you how to open it. In my case, I want to use Secure CRT. And now we wait for the virtual route reflector to boot up. The virtual route reflector and all the other Juniper images might take a while to boot up. That strongly depends on the performance of your server, the underlying hard disks, your CPUs, and so on. Don't worry if it takes quite some time. Also, during boot up, you might see some little hiccups, like the console messing with your outputs. And that's normal. Just relax, sit back, and wait for it to normalize again. After some time, your virtual route reflector has successfully booted up, and you'll be able to log into it. 99.9% Juniper images come up with an amnesiac mode, where you just need the login name root with no password. Type CLI once you've logged in to get to the Juno CLI. And with show version, you can verify that your Juniper virtual route reflector, in this case, is the version that it's supposed to be. In our case, 19.3 R2 S1.5 as shown above. It will also tell you a bit about the model and all the other modules, including the subversions. If you hit Show Chassis Hardware, you can see that you have a virtual route reflector. You also see a virtual serial number. And that's it. You have successfully booted up your virtual route reflector. Now you can start labbing with it.
That's all good, but you might ask, Christian, what if I have a Juniper device that is not officially supported in EVE, but I still want to run it? Well, luckily, every Juniper image that I know runs on KVM. So that means it can technically run on EVE. And in 99.9% that is true. And now I'm going to show you how we can use that.
To add a custom template to your EVE Community Edition, get into opt unit lab HTML includes. We now have the custom templates YAML distribution file, and we will copy that without the distribution at the end. Just rename it to custom templates YAML and use nano to edit it. Once you're inside of it, you can see that a generic has already been added, and we will change that. In this case, set the name to vSRX3.0, and the list name, that's the name that you will see inside of EVE, we will rename it to Juniper vSRX 3.0. Ctrl O to write it, Ctrl X to exit it, and you have now created the new filter for EVENG to recognize. Next, we want to go to opt unit lab HTML templates and copy the Linux YAML file to create a vSRX 3.0 YAML file. That's basically the configuration file that EVE needs for your new vSRX. Edit it via nano. As you can see, you can use this template now to change it to your vSRX. So replace the Linux with vSRX 3.0. You can also set another icon here if you have a custom icon, but I will leave it for now for the server PNG. Change the CPU, RAM and Ethernet ports according to your needs, and also change the console from VNC to Telnet, because we will access the vSRX via Telnet console. I will also change the CPU to 2 as per requirements, and also add a custom interface naming. I will leave that in the comments. The first interface is the FXP interface. The other interfaces are the GE interface that should count up. That's what this syntax is for. Ctrl O to write it, Ctrl X to exit nano, and that's it. After fixing the permissions, we are ready to add our vSRX 3.0 to our topology. Back in our web interface, if we try to add a new node and search for Juniper devices, we can see the Juniper vSRX 3.0 successfully added. But we have no image uploaded yet, so let's change that. Download the vSRX 3.0 KVM files. In this case, it's already the QCOW2, so that's easy for us. Rename your folder vSRX3.0- and the version number. Remember that we set vSRX3.0 before in our template, so EVE is looking for files inside of a vSRX3.0 folder. I will rename it here also to virt.ioa to reflect the hard disk. Put it in the folder and upload it to your EVE. Just like before, connect to your EVE server using, for example, FileZilla, and go to the folder opt UNet Lab add-ons QEMU, where we have already placed our virtual route reflector. We now need to upload our vSRX3.0 folder, including the virt.ioa QCOW file. Again, depending on your bandwidth, this can take some time. Back via SSH on our EVE server, we go back to opt UNet Lab add-ons QEMU and check that our folder and our file has successfully been placed. In this case, it has. And now we need to change the permissions again. So hit the fix permissions script again to make sure that all the permissions are set up correctly. And that's it. We can now add the vSRX 3.0. Back at the web interface, we can now add our vSRX 3.0 just as we wanted to. Click on it, and in this case you can also change the icon, which per default is the server PNG, to maybe the Juniper SRX image, for example. Leave all the other values as they are, because that's what we already changed in the configuration file. Hit save, and the vSRX 3.0 is added to your topology. Connect it to your virtual route reflector, for example, and you can see the first port is the FXP0, the management, and all the other GE ports are counted accordingly. In this case, I will create the GE000 to EM0 interface. As you might have seen, there is a little bug in the JVRR. Let's fix that as well. Since we are already here, let's also fix the Juniper VRR template to match Juniper's recommendations. We need to change the RAM from whatever value it has to 8192, and in my case I also changed the Ethernets to two interfaces, EM0 and EM1. Technically it can have more, but I just leave it to 2 to follow the recommendations. Delete your old virtual route reflector because the changes will only take effect if you add a new one. Add a new route reflector, and now you see that the Ethernets have changed to 2. Hit save, and if you now connect your JVRR to your vSRX 3.0, you will see only EM0 and EM1 as it's supposed to be. Reconnect them, and you're good to go.
See? It isn't even hard to create a custom template, if you know how to do it. I hope this video helped you and that you're now able to create your custom templates as you wish. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because there are more videos coming with the Juniper gear. Stay tuned!